doing this in legalized Bari. I'm probably 13 years old. Already. But I was born in the Bronx on April 9, 2012, which makes me the youngest ever NYU student. 550 times by this point. So today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting problem in mathematics and how lessons from my research on it apply not just to research in math, not just to research in any field, but pretty much everywhere. So let's start with the following question. What problem am I talking about? So I'm talking about the zeta function and its irrationality in the integer. So what is the zeta function, first of all? Well, imagine you have a sequence of numbers starting with 1. So up there you have a rectangle of length 1, right? And then slowly you start adding rectangles. So you have an orange rectangle now of length 1/2. Then you add the third rectangle of length 1/3. So you keep adding these fractions to the sequence. If you had a fourth term, it would just be 1 plus 1/2 plus a third plus a fourth, and so on and so forth. So if you take a calculus, you know that this sequence, also known as the harmonic sequence, diverges. Now I'm not using it for the proof of that since we have a time limit, but to keep it short, what it means to diverge is that if you wait long enough, this sequence will reach anywhere. Surprising, right? Because it grows so slowly. But if you wait long enough, it will reach 10 after 12,000 terms, 12,000 rectangles. It will reach 20 after 272 million rectangles. It will reach 100 after 151 billion rectangles, billion rectangles, and it will reach any number provided you wait long enough. But you can make one slight modification to stop this series from diverging. You can make sure that this sequence can't grow past a certain point, or in other words, that its growth is limited, bounded. And you can do that by just adding an exponent. What if we now have a sequence where you start with 1 again, but you add 1 plus 1/2 to the s. Then you add 1 plus 1/2 to the s plus a third to the s, where s is just some exponent. Turns out, if s is greater than 1, this converges. What that means is that, for example, if you take s is equal to 2, over here, you'll see that these terms keep growing, they keep increasing, but no matter how long you wait, no matter how many squares you add, this won't grow past the limit of about 1.6449. Yes, that's off the top of my head. So, if you wait long enough, it's never going to grow past 1.6449. For 1,000 terms, it's going to be pretty close to 1.6449. 151 billion terms, it's still going to be pretty close to 1.6449. It's never going to hit 1.65. It's never even going to hit 1.64499 for that matter. It will never hit this limit, nor will it hit a single number above that. That's what it means to converge. And that upper limit is the zeta function at that number. So now, let's pause for a second and ask ourselves, why are we doing this? What could possibly be the application of something this severe? Well, the zeta function does pop up in the number density of photons and statistical mechanics and Feynman diagrams, but, I'm talking about irrationality. Where does the irrationality of something this exotic even pop up in physics, or in anything, for that matter? Why am I approaching this problem? You might say, well, surely you can provide some new insight to it, right? But this problem didn't start with me. I didn't come up with a zeta function. It was come up with by a very famous mathematician about 250 years ago named Leonard Euler. And Euler was the greatest mathematician of his day, and he could barely make any progress on this problem. Then you had to wait 200 more years until 1979 for another greatest mathematician of his era to make the slightest bit of progress. And now I am a bachelor's degree student in mathematics. So what am I adding to the conversation that nobody else could have possibly added before in one of the most popular problems in mathematics? Why did I choose to go into this problem? It is a totally illogical, irrational thing. This is So why did I do it? Was it even my choice, my volition? Did I just go into it on pure instinct? Did I have like the free will to even do this in the first place? Now, you might not expect me to be talking about that. At this point, I'm supposed to be explaining the intuition behind the Taylor series for side effects. Why am I out? Oh! Wrong one. So, am I supposed to be talking about free will right now? No, I'm supposed to be explaining the intuition behind the Taylor series for side effects. You know, you start with x, you subtract x cubed over 3, and you add x to the 5 over 5, and so on and so forth. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about free will. This is unexpected. Why? Well, I'm not an expert in free will. I've never taken a single philosophy class. I'm not a philosophy professor or a philosophy student. I originally wrote my talk here today about free will, about getting involved to question whether you did have free will. Why did I write it? Well, not because I'm particularly interested in free will, in philosophy, or in mathematics. Still love sticking with mathematics. But because I wanted to surprise everybody in the audience. I wanted to surprise everybody watching. I wanted to make the statement in the future that I didn't just do mathematics. I could do something more than be one-dimensional. I could do things that didn't pertain to my area of study. And that's why I decided to talk about free will. Well, in my past draft. Right now I'm not talking about free will, but as you can see, I'm clearly not talking about that either. So, why do we have those expectations for our public speaker? Well, probably for a reason, because TEDx's speaker guide says you should be an expert in the topic you're speaking. And I mean, that's a really reasonable expectation. Right? You don't want a flat earther to come up to the TEDx stage and talk about why the earth is flat. I mean, people that's the organization's responsibility to not flat earthers coming up on the stage. But, so, that's a reasonable expectation for some things, right? But sometimes, what if you want the tinge of curiosity and uncertainty? What if you don't want to serve the conclusion to your viewers on a silver platter? What if you want to make the audience go through that research themselves? What if you don't want to inspire them to make a call to action that go on with their life as it was normally? What if you want to inspire them to look into it themselves? What if you want them to go through the journey and not teleport to the destination? Now, that was my motivation behind writing the free will talk. But the other motivation was that I'm not supposed to be talking about free will. I'm supposed to be talking about math, physics, and all the stuff that I'm supposed to be doing 24/7. Now, why did I keep up that facade of only doing math and physics? Well, I mean, that's kind of what every single child prodigy in the industry has to do. You see, child prodigies are kind of treated like Superman in the child prodigy industry. Now, Superman, you get his origin story. His original birth name was Kal-El, and he was born on some planet named Krypton 50 years ago. And then, because of an explosion, he was sent to Earth. But does he get any personal development in the comics? No. We don't ask whether he solves Rubik's Cubes or walks his dog in the middle of fighting Brainiac and Lex Luthor. In the same way, you don't ask if a prodigy is mowing the lawn or watching YouTube videos on Minecraft in the middle of solving 2 mathematics exercises. And I mean, for Superman, that's totally fine, right? Because the whole reason you're reading his comics or watching his movies is to see the action. You're not watching to see him walk his dog. Because Superman is not a real person. Superman is a concept that occasionally gets written down on paper. But unfortunately, child prodigies are real people. So they can't be reduced to paper to the action the same exact way superheroes can. They can't just be reduced to the thing they're most known for the same way superheroes can. And that's just the same, not just with child prodigies, but for every single person on Earth. We know everybody as an actor, or a screenwriter, or a mathematician, or a biologist, or, I don't know, a politician. We don't expect them to step outside their field. Under very rare exceptions, we don't expect a politician to make defining statements about literature. We don't expect a scientist to be talking about politics. We don't expect people to step outside their field of expertise. Why do we have those unreasonable expectations? Because all of us are more complex. All of us are more complex than we could have ever possibly imagined. If you were forced to sit with somebody else in the audience in an asylum for 10 years, you couldn't tell them everything you possibly knew about yourself. You couldn't tell them every single reason you had. You couldn't tell them everything you and your subconscious especially knows about yourself. You couldn't tell them what you think of yourself, and what you think of your role in the world, what you think of your job, or your student, or your role as a student, or your professors, or your boss. You couldn't tell them every single thought you had. In 10 years, or 20 years, or 40 years, how if you were assigned to study another random person in the world for your entire life, you couldn't get to know them as well as they did. Because all of us have that extra dimension of identity. All of those memories, all of those hidden thoughts that we don't want to expose, we have them all hidden at the back of the mind, but maybe we want to let those come to a head, specifically our head. So, we don't want to keep all of those identities hidden away, because being as authentic as we possibly can is easy. Being as authentic as we possibly can makes communication easy. Now, we know what each other's intentions are. We know that you're not trying to play me, and I'm not trying to play you. And authenticity feels a lot better than hiding. So, why aren't we our authentic selves? Why wasn't I my authentic self before this talk? Well, because it feels natural. The reviews you get from newspapers are great. This mysterious genius, he doesn't think like the rest of you does. He sees the world in a totally different way. Like you couldn't get to see the world he experiences it unless you put on AR glasses or something. In fact, when I was told, when I headed over to NBC before the pandemic, which is pretty legit by now, I was only 7 years old. Yeah, that was me. So I was told by the crew to come up with a response about me seeing the world different from something. Now, I don't see the world differently. I don't take geometric measurements of a building every time I walk into it. I can't give you a mathematical assessment on whether you look good. I can't tell you anything that a normal person would. This clicker is black, and I think both you and I can agree on that. I don't see the world any differently than you see it. Being good at math or anything really isn't a superpower. It doesn't fundamentally twist your identity. It's just a different way of thinking. And yet, none of the child prodigy shows like Little Big Sox, where I was with Melissa McCarthy all the way back in 2020, none of them are ready to approach that. None of them are ready to approach that being a math prodigy shouldn't be, or being a prodigy in anything really, shouldn't be the defining part of your identity. It shouldn't be the only thing that defines you. I mean, it should be one of the things you're known for, sure, but it shouldn't be the only thing that people know for. And yet, we can't approach that with you. We shouldn't be able to only stick one attribute, one layer to everyone. Because eventually, we start dividing ourselves by those labels. We start saying, well, as some of the other speakers have pointed out, we start dividing ourselves on arbitrary lines, by gender, or by major, or by class, or by age. We divide ourselves on lines that are totally unnecessary because we refuse to see the incomprehensible complexity in each other. We refuse to understand that other people are just as human and just as incomprehensibly complex as we are. As I said, if you had to spend your whole life studying one person, you still wouldn't know them as well as they know themselves. So, once again, this is a humble request to stop treating me, any prodigy, anybody you know in your life is super. Don't think, please stop thinking about what you think they do as the only thing they do. Because, you know, I don't only do mathematics problems and physics problems sometimes. I mow the lawn. I have a vegetable garden in the back. I watch YouTube videos. I have threads. That's because I'm not Superman. I don't slash down a bunch of math problems and go to sleep the same way Superman seems to slash down a bunch of villains, fall into a vegetative state until the next one comes. So, this is a humble request to stop trapping me in this box.